Let's get to this Wes Welker video. The Wes Welker video was interesting because when you think of Wes Welker, Stugotz, the backstory for those of you who do not know. The Dolphins had Wes Welker, and in his Dolphin career, he had one touchdown. He was not a special receiver. In fact, was so not special that he told us the story of one time somebody, just like with Zach Thomas, came out of a place and gave him car keys thinking he was the valet. He told us the story that a neighbor said, upon looking him up and down, they said, "What do you do for a living?" And Wes Welker said, "I'm a football player." And the response that Wes Welker got is, "No wonder we are 1-15. So Wes Welker made his way to New England and became a Hall of Famer, or put up Hall of Fame type numbers if he's not a Hall of Famer.
Belichick did one of those things where they played against the Dolphins. He liked Welker. He went and got Welker. That's when we thought Belichick was a genius. He wasn't. He had Tom Brady.
Okay, and that certainly helped, and that made Wes Welker, that turned into Edelman, that turned into Brady and Belichick thinking they could do it with anybody. But when they did it best was when they had Randy Moss. When they did it best, and I remember this one specifically, you probably do too, Greg, the undefeated Patriots. They were totally overwhelming. Better than any of the teams you're watching playing football today, including San Francisco. Undefeated and deserved it. I remember specifically them coming into town, the Patriots of Tom Brady and Randy Moss. Tom Brady threw deep into obvious double coverage, and Randy Moss just jumped over two Dolphins and had a touchdown 70 yards down the field. Go look at the difference in Tom Brady's numbers when he had Randy Moss and when he didn't have Randy Moss. It's staggering, the difference, because Randy Moss, by many accounts, is the greatest receiver ever.
He had 50 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. I mean,
a lot of people
by far his best year.
He is certainly the best deep threat in the history of the sport, but Wes Welker is here to tell you, with all of those as bona fides, like I played with Tom Brady, I was with Belichick, I was with Randy Moss, I know what I'm talking about here. Tyreek Hill is better than Randy Moss because he's more diverse as a route runner than Randy Moss.
I mean, and I all due respect to Randy. I love Randy, and Randy's probably the best deep ball receiver, ever in the game. But Reed can run it all. He can run in the whole route tree. He can run choice routes. He can run looky. He can, he can take the top off. He can, his ball skills, the coming in and out of breaks. Name a route you don't like him on. I just can't think of one. And to me, that's what kind of separates him in that regard, and just his mindset and the way he approaches every single day and every single game. It's very, very impressive, and he's got the mentality along with all those things, which is the most important part. And that's probably where he separates himself the most.
I do not want to be a prisoner of the moment. I saw Randy Moss. I think Randall Cunningham was out of the league and became MVP because he had Randy Moss. This is just done for Tua. Something like that was just done for Tua. Tua was not a great quarterback, and suddenly he is a great quarterback.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's played with Tua, and he's played with Patrick Mahomes. Those are very good quarterbacks. I mean, Randy Moss did it with Randall Cunningham, as you mentioned, Brad Johnson, Jeff George, Todd Bauman, anybody.
With everyone.
Yeah, outside of maybe a slow spell when he was with the Oakland Raiders, he put up numbers with anybody.
And by the way, the Chiefs right now, without Tyreek, I know they were without him last year and did better. The offense is pretty ordinary this year, the Chiefs' offense.
They won a Super Bowl. They won a Super Bowl.
They won a Super Bowl.
Right.
I'm talking about the offense. Greg.
I know.
The offense, last time I looked, was 18th or 20th in the league in scoring. That's middling.
Stugotz.
Patrick Mahomes is not putting up MVP numbers this year.
This is the first time in his career that the defense is better than the offense in Kansas City.
I don't actually think it's confusing. These things deteriorate over time. It doesn't happen from one season to the next. It takes a minute. So the weakening of the offense started last year, and they won the Super Bowl anyway. And this year, the defense is better than that, and they look more questionable to win the Super Bowl because they simply, they lost a game because they couldn't catch one of those deep balls. And in the game we just watched of Miami, because I thought this part was interesting, you have in Tampa. And listen to what I'm saying here, because I just heard Andrew Hawkins. Tomahawk totally found its footing yesterday and had the best day I've seen them have or heard them have. And Andrew Hawkins was talking about Mike Evans has to be considered the best receiver of this time is what he was saying, because it's 10 straight years of 1,000-yard seasons. And he's saying he's going to keep doing that. And I'm thinking about it for a second. I'm like, I can't be the best receiver of this time. Tyreek Hill came here because he doesn't want to be Mike Evans anymore. He wants to be the guy who makes everyone else. He doesn't want to be Patrick Mahomes' shadow. He wants to be the reason. And what I saw that was interesting yesterday is somebody on Twitter put up that they couldn't explain to me how bad a throw that was that Tua made on one of Tyreek Hill's long balls. And Tyreek Hill's response was, bad take, I ran the wrong route. When Tyreek Hill leaves Kansas City and he tells you it wasn't just about money, that he believes in the things here, Tyreek Hill has supported his quarterback from day one in a way that makes their success shared and makes their bond real, because Tyreek Hill doesn't have to do that. The tweet was celebrating, look at how amazing Tyreek Hill is because of how bad a throw this is. And Tyreek Hill is going out of his way to say, that's my fault. My quarterback threw it in the wrong spot, in the right spot. I ran to the wrong spot.
But to your point, this situation, you're right, Dan, is very different. If he's doing this, and he did, with Patrick Mahomes, no one is talking about Tyreek Hill as the MVP. And right now, they're talking about Tyreek Hill as MVP. Everyone would assign the credit to Patrick Mahomes, some to Hill. Right now, they're giving it all to Tyreek Hill.
But frame it the way I'm telling you. I don't believe there's anyone listening to this who would try to make the argument that Mike Evans is the best receiver of the last 10 years, even though it's an argument that can be made. And Tyreek Hill was tired of that in Kansas City. Stugotz, Mostert has 16 touchdowns. That led the league before McCaffrey played on Sunday.
Yeah.
He's got 16 touchdowns as a product of that offense. He's not the special person in that offense.
And part of the reason he has 16 touchdowns is that the running game benefits so greatly from the deep threat that Tyreek Hill provides. And when I write that Tyreek Hill should be the front runner in the MVP race, part of it is that he has elevated Tua to the point where Tua is right ahead of him in the latest MVP betting odds I've seen.
This is
the quarterback's always going to be.
But this is what's fascinating to me about how we do this to both Mike Evans and Tyreek Hill. Winning is the biggest thing, and then we give the quarterback the biggest thing. You win, we'll give you the credit. Even if you're Tebow, we will give you the credit as being a great quarterback. But we're going to find one way to give the winner the credit or the quarterback the credit. It's why it's not the wide receivers in the commercials. It's the quarterbacks in the commercial.
And the Kelseys.
Yeah. There is an AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year award in which kind of rationalize one goes to one guy, the other goes to the other guy. For what it's worth, Tyreek Hill is presently the betting favorite on AP NFL Offensive Player of the Year.
Right, but the AP has awarded 66 MVP awards. 0 have gone to a wide receiver. Jerry Rice never won. Randy Moss never won. That has to stop if Tyreek Hill is the first ever with a 2,000-yard season and is doing what he's doing for a Super Bowl contender.
Presently for the MVP, Brock Purdy is now leading.
The last 4 years, the Offensive Player of the Year has gone to position players each year. So in 2019, it was Michael Thomas, 2020, Derrick Henry, 2021, Cooper Kupp, and 2022, Justin Jefferson. It reasons to stand Tyreek Hill will win that this season.
Yeah, it's almost understood that MVP quarterback award, Offensive Player of the Year, we reward the guys that we don't make MVPs.
Right. The Offensive Player of the Year is a consolation prize because you know that a quarterback's going to win the big prize, so you give the consolation to the Tyreek Hills, and that has to change.
Where's Mike McDaniel in the MVP odds?
Put it on the poll, Juju. Where's Mike McDaniel on the MVP odds, yes or no? And it reasons to stand has to become a T-shirt because Jeremy prides himself on being an Emmy-winning broadcaster who speaks correctly, and it reasons to stand is not how you meant to say that.
You're right.
An Emmy-winning broadcaster.
How do you say it?
Jeremy.
Jeremy Tash.
The amazing part about what we're talking about here, I think, is that Tyreek Hill came here to be the reason for winning an offense, and he's succeeded.
Pick this over New York.
Where New York was offering him. I want to talk about that for a second.
That was a fun time.
New York offered him $6 million more. $6 million more.
Taxes.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Taxes is part of it, but he makes the argument that it wasn't just taxes. I learned the other day. You know who is the team that hasn't made the playoffs in the NFL for the longest time?
The Jets?
Yeah, it's 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's 12 years without making the playoffs. I think second place is like Houston, and it's 7 years. Like, it's a stretch of really.
That's going to end.
It's really terrible, and it's not. They're still looking for a wide receiver. But when you talk about the reasons for winning, Stugotz, I was trying to say this yesterday. I now understand with McCaffrey and what he's doing in San Francisco. I didn't understand it at the time, why the Dolphins were trying to get in on Jonathan Taylor and a bunch of other running backs. Because if Mostert can get to 16.
Right.
If Mostert can get to 16 touchdowns, do you turn Jonathan Taylor into McCaffrey by putting him in this offense?
Well, you also follow the San Francisco formula, which Mike McDaniel is very familiar with, which is, load up on talent if you have a reasonable contract at the quarterback position. Now that they've jettisoned Jimmy Garoppolo, they've doubled down on that in San Francisco. Also, let's not disrespect Gabriel Wilson over in New York. He's a pretty special wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Garrett Wilson, that's fine.
Garrett Wilson, yeah.
I said don't disrespect the man.
You would think of Gabe Davis. He's up north in New York. Yeah.
He's terrible. No, I just
sometimes he's good.
He is
Sometimes
not.
he's
Go
terrible.
Knights.
Yeah, he's confusing, Gabe Davis. I mean, he is.
I look in a mirror here. It brings me great joy to see you being the one screwing up the names. Like I just
little heat off you.
Just a little. I mean, just a little.